Hey guys, I am John Carrick, and today we are doing 100 Bullets number 27. Last one we did was number 21, so there's a gap here of 6 issues or so, 5 issues, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one is about, I don't want to tell you who's in it. So you're not going to recognize him, probably not. If you're Gen X, oh, that was loud. If you're Gen X or later, you're probably not going to recognize this character. And this is the Santa Monica Masonic Hospital. I lived in Santa Monica for a while. They do have a big Mason Hall, but they have St. John's is the big hospital in Santa Monica. And this character died in Hollywood, Florida, not in Santa Monica, California. But just the same, this is Agent Graves dropping off a briefcase with a burn victim. I'm going to presume that he was in a previous issue, not this one. And here, Agent Graves visits with this old timer out in the hallway. Here we get a canted panel, the bane of my fucking existence. This really well-drawn Italian elderly gentleman in a robe with a walker. Ugh. And he's passing by the orderly here with this old lady, and the orderly gives him mad respect. Hey slugger, how you doing today? Seen better. Yeah, I hear you. You're good. But he's out walking around. So, as I was saying, these canted panels are the bane of my existence. I absolutely hate them. And this one, for the emergency restrooms, is up obviously a higher level in the hospital. I do like the ceiling, the floor, whatever. The art is great. As I was saying, this guy calls him Slugger and treats him with respect. We get another canted panel. This book has a lot of canted panels. Right down there. There's none of these panels are straight. And I guess in a retirement home, ain't that the truth, you know? So this old guy catches Agent Graves just as he gets into the elevator. Excuse me, me? Agent Graves looks him right back in the eye. Do you remember who I am? And this is good writing, but it is a little bit indulgent in that Agent Graves and this baseball player, he remembers everything about him. He knows he's there. He basically knew he was gonna bump into him. He remembers him really, really well. Because one of the things that was revealed in a previous issue, the one with Shepard and I want to say Dizzy, Shepard and maybe Cole Burns, they were talking about the Trust wants Graves to do it again, and Graves told them no. Now we're going to find out what the Trust wants Graves to do again that he told them no about. This guy right here says, you remember you gave me that briefcase. Yeah, I remember. And what you did. And blah, blah, blah. So they're in a hospital. I suppose I should cut long story short because they talk around the event. Here he is back in the past, and this is when Agent Graves gives him the briefcase. And they're at the grave of a beautiful film star who sort of, they mention needed the world to love her. Basically, this is Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe. And Agent Graves gave Joe DiMaggio a briefcase that showed him that Kennedy had her murdered because she was going to tell the press about their affair. And that they injected her with Nambutal that killed her. And, what are you going to do about it? And you have a chance to do something about it. A lot of men never get this chance. They really talk around it. They talk about how she needed the fans and that he could have lived without it. Being that he's a baseball player and everything like that. So Granted, baseball was the sport back then. This is all, it's good exposition, but that's what it is, you know? It's a couple guys out in the graveyard. And they don't show, but here he gives him the briefcase. It takes a while. This whole issue is them talking around who it is that's going to be killed and why. So, I suppose we're going through this pretty quick. There's an army. Go army, an army of one. You know, the Spartans had a saying, if there's one, there's none. It's a stupid ad for the army. There's it. Now here we get the first braided sort of storyline, in that we jump from here to back in the old folks' home, where they're still having the conversation, and Graves is standing in the elevator talking to Joe DiMaggio, talking about, you did it, you know. And this is where he lets him know that he was one of several shooters, and that they were always wondering if he did it or not, but he wasn't the only guy out there. But he was the only guy out there that Graves sent, that other people sent, other shooters that had nothing to do with him. And then this the big Patrice O'Neal guy looks at one of the nurse's legs, and the old lady slaps him with her cane. And then we get, that's, like I said, that's the first part of the braided storyline. Meanwhile, Graves is dropping off this briefcase to this guy, whoever this is. We don't know. We don't get his name. And since his face is burned, I don't recognize him. We just continues the conversation with Joe DiMaggio about, you did what you did, they did what they did. Nobody ever found out. There was only one magic bullet, one, blah, blah, blah. And it was revenge, etc., etc. The art is beautiful. And I like that there's no canted panels here in this, these two. Well, I guess this one down here is pretty canted. Oh, the braided storyline. The nurse and the big guy are fooling around outside with the old lady in the chair. And she's having trouble breathing, having trouble with her heart, while the conversation between Joe DiMaggio continues. Here we get behind, this is the grassy knoll, right? That's Joe DiMaggio killing President Kennedy. That's what this is. That's what this storyline is. Meanwhile, the old lady has a heart attack and falls out of her chair while this guy is looking at his briefcase. So there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. And this is immaculately drawn. Here we get Lee Harvey Oswald from the book Suppository Building, as they said in Full Metal Jacket, and everybody laughed. Private Snowball. And the old lady dies, and the nurse is getting felt up and freaks out and panics. And Joe DiMaggio, and this guy has his briefcase. And it is what it is. It's what is there to be said? So the old lady actually does pass away. Right there. The nurse and the orderly are both in trouble. Joe DiMaggio doesn't feel any better about having killed the president because he still lost Maryland. It's a sad story. If I had a heart, I would feel something. But Agent Graves does go and leave flowers on Maryland's grave. It's funny that his name is Graves. Gotta say it twice in the same sentence, which is always bad. So, today's comic book, 100 Bullets number 27, is brought to you by Legacy of a Mad Scientist and The Legend of Ashley Fox. Look at her off the camera there. That's not right. Off the edge of the screen. You can barely see her awesome gun. These are two amazing science fiction fantasy stories for you, for your friends. You can buy the paperbacks from Amazon.com. You can download the ebooks for $15 less. Paperbacks are 16 bucks, I think. That was as cheap as I could make them. If you're going to do self-publishing, there's no point in trying to gouge the readership when you don't have a fan base yet. So I'm going to reset the camera and then talk to you guys for a couple minutes. Hey guys, so we just finished looking at 100 Bullets, 27. It's a decent comic. This is a really good comic. When it comes to conspiracy theory comics, for one issue, this is top shelf. Storytelling, it doesn't get any better than this. The murder of a president and solved this way, I mean, this is a story everyone heard, but look at how it's presented. It's not the story that you can copyright, it's the execution. So this is a story a lot of people have tried to tell, and Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Risso did a really good job of it. I kind of stick with the idea that he had some other people in his crosshairs, but regardless, maybe it was just done for power. Today's conflicted card, God, I can't read that. The Jack of Clubs, conflicted deck 2. And this one is your community, your post-collapse community is doing okay, but is suffering, and suddenly you're running out of supplies and water, and you discover that your best friend has been selling food and water for ammunition and not telling anyone. He's just been doing it on his own and sacrificing the entire community. And so how does that get handled? How do you handle betrayal in the end of the world? Especially when when it causes a huge problem. Can you afford to keep that person around? What sort of punishment do what sort of punishment do you exact for that? You know what I mean? That's whatever happens, it's not good. Once you discover that, it's really not good. It throws a whole community up in the air, and you don't want that. You don't want that. That's why they say good fences make good neighbors. That's the whole thing about locks and rationing. Then you have to seize the food to lock it up. So it's not a healthy predicament to find yourself in. It's not a good place to be. But it's a great writing prompt. You know what I mean? I personally hate stories that involve treachery inside the group. I think it's lazy writing. I think that's about keeping the cost for an ensemble cast low. If you look at the first Mission Impossible, it was billed as you didn't know who the villain was, and I think it was that franchise should have been dead as a doornail after that first film when John Voight was the bad guy. I thought they needed to establish a real enemy, but it slipped along for 8 installments now. So, James Bond, I suppose, has the bad guys. So they chose not to do bad guys. They just did internal politics, which is more in keeping with an empire in decline, which is what the West is. It's one empire under English is really what it is. And it's becoming one empire under money, not just the dollar, but under money. Because global currency, this whole thing with Elon and the Pakistanis, he sees people as people. He wants to hire the cheapest people he can hire. You know what I mean? He just wants cogs. So, I don't know what to say about that. I'm trying to do something completely different. I have a completely different focus. I chose not to be an engineer. I chose not to be an engineer because those weren't the challenges that I was losing to. I was losing to irrational people, and I felt that I needed to understand that, and so I chose engineering of the spirit, which is what fiction is. Understanding motivations, understanding choices, understanding decision trees, planning, strategy. Empire building is done with people, not with technology. You could easily argue I haven't mastered this. I don't think anyone ever does. You know what I mean? It's just about how far you get. And I've gotten really far in here, so we'll see how far that can take me out in the rest of the world. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, I think that's it for today. See you guys tomorrow.